Welcome to the Book of Days Project. It is March the 10th. Born on this day, Bishop Dupa in 1598 in Lewisham. Marcellus Malpighi, microscopic anatomist in 1628 in Bologna. Professor Playfair, a natural philosopher in Bonneville in 1748. Dead on this day, Heliogabalus, emperor, beheaded A.D. 222. Pope Benedict III in 858. Thomas Lord Seymour of Sudley, beheaded 1549. The Earl of Bute, Prime Minister of 1762 in South Audley Street in London. And Benjamin West, painter, dead 1820. Oh, John VI, King of Portugal as well, dead on this day. A whole host of famed dead on this day, March 10th. It is a feast day of the 40 martyrs of Saint Sebastian, 320. It is also the feast day of Saint Dractovius, abbot, about 580. What will we speak to you today? Let's speak to you of something perhaps you have never heard of or thought of recently. Honeycombs in timber. Among the many interesting facts concerning bees, which attract the attention not only of naturalists but of other persons acquainted with country life, is the existence of honeycombs in timber. The little workers select their dwellings in accordance with instincts which are yet but little understood, penetrating through or into solid substances by means apparently very inadequate to the work to be done. Monsieur Reaumur proposed the name of carpenter bees to denote those which work in wood, to distinguish them from mason bees that work in stone, and the mining bees that, yes, work underground. Mr. Rennie says, "We have frequently witnessed the operations of these ingenious little workers, who are particularly partial to post palings in the woodwork of houses, which has become soft by beginning to decay. Wood actually decayed or affected by dry rot they seem to reject as unfit for their purposes, but they make no objections to any hole previously drilled, provided it be not too large. It is always, so far as is known, a female bee that thus engages in carpentry. Mr. Rennie describes one which he saw actually at work. He says, "She chiseled a place in a piece of wood for the nest with her jaws. She gnawed the wood, little bits at a time, and flew away to deposit each separate fragment at a distance. When the hole was thus made, she set out on repeated journeys to bring pollen and clay. She visited every flower near at hand fitted to yield pollen, and brought home a load of it on her thighs, and alternated these journeys with others which resulted in bringing back little pellets of clay. After several days' labor, she had brought in pollen enough to serve as food for the future generation, and clay enough to close up the door of her dwelling." Several days afterward, Mr. Rennie cut open the wooden post in which these operations had been going on, and he found a nest of 6 cells. Quote, "The wood formed the lateral walls, but the cells were separated one from another by clay partitions no thicker than cardboard. The wood was worked as smooth as if it had been chiseled by a joiner." Such instances are of repeated occurrence, more or less varied and detailed. Thus, on the 10th of March, 1858, this day, some workmen employed by Mr. Brumfitt of Preston, while sawing up a large solid log of baywood 20 feet long by 2 feet square, discovered a cavity in it about 8 feet long, containing a fully formed honeycomb. Many carpenter bees dig perpendicular galleries of great depth in upright posts and palings. Reaumur describes a particular kind, called by him the violet carpenter bee, on account of the beautiful color of the wings, which usually selects an upright piece of wood into which she bores obliquely for about an inch, and then, changing the directions, works perpendicularly for 12 or 15 inches, and half an inch in breadth. She sometimes scoops out 3 or 4 such channels in a piece of wood. The depositing of the eggs, the storing of them with pollen, and the building up of the partitions proceed in regular order thus. The bee first deposits an egg at the bottom of the excavation, then covers it with a thick layer of paste made of pollen and honey, and then makes over or upon this a wooden cover by arranging concentric rings of little chips or gnawings till she has formed a hard flooring about as thick as a crown piece, exhibiting from its mode of construction concentric rings like those of a tree, and cemented by glue of her own making. She deposits an egg on this flooring or partition, then another layer of soft food for another of her children, and then builds another partition, and so on, for a series of perhaps 10 or 12 in height. Few things are more wonderful in their way than this, for the little worker has no tools but 2 sharp teeth to help her. She bores a tunnel 10 or 12 times her own length, quite smooth at the side, and makes 10 or 12 floors to her house by a beautiful kind of journey. This labor occupies several weeks. The egg first deposited develops into a grub, a pupa, and a perfect bee earlier than the others, and the mother makes a side door out of the bottom cell for the elder children to work their way out when old enough. They can penetrate the partitions between the cells, but not the hard wood of a piece of timber. Here comes a little poetry for you, The Brownie Bee, by a Cornish croon. Behold those winged images, bound for their evening bowers. They are the nation of the bees, born from the breath of flowers. Strange people they, a mystic race, in life and food and dwelling place. They first were seen on earth, 'tis said, when the rose breathes its spring. Men thought her blushing bosom shed, these children of the wing. But lo, their hosts went down the wind, filled with the thoughts of God's own mind. They built them houses made with hands, and there alone they dwell. No man to this day understands the mystery of their cell. Your cunning sages cannot see the deep foundations of the bee. Lo, in the violet breast of blue, for treasured food they sink. They know the flowers that hold the dew, for their small rays to drink. They glide, King Solomon might gaze with wonder on their awful ways. And once, it is a grandma's tale, yet filled with secret lore, there dwelt with a woodland vale, fast by old Cornwall's shore, an ancient woman, worn and bent, fallen nature's mournful monument. A home had they, the cluttering race, beside her garden wall. All blossoms breathed around the place, and sunbeams fain would fall. The lily loved that combo, the best of all the valleys of the west. But so it was that on a day when summer built her bowers, the waxen wanderers ceased to play around the cottage flowers. No hum was heard, no wing would roam. They dwelt within their cloistered home. They lasted long, no tongue could tell their pastime of their toil. What binds the soldiers to a cell? Who should divide the spoil? It lasted long, it fain would last, till autumn rustled on the blast. The sternly went that old woman old, she sought the chancel floor, and there with purpose bad and bold, knelt down amid the poor. She took, she hid the blessed bread, which is what Jesu Master said. She bare it to a distant home, she laid it by the hive, to lure the wanderers forth to roam, that so her strove might thrive. 'Twas a wild wish, a thought unblessed, some cruel legend of the West. But lo, at morning tide a sign for wandering eyes to trace, they found above that bread a shrine, reared by the harmless race. They brought their walls from bud and flower, they built bright roof and beamy tower. Was it a dream, or did they hear float from those golden cells a sound as of some psaltery near, or soft and silvery bells? A low, sweet psalm that grieved within, in mournful memory of the sin. Was it a dream? 'Twas sweet no less, set not the vision free. Long let the lingering legend bless the nation of the bee. So shall they bear upon their wings a parable of sacred things. So shall they teach when men blaspheme, or sacrament or shrine, that humbler things may finally dream of mysteries divine, and holier hearts than his may beat beneath the bold blasphemer's feet.